My brothers and my sisters, many people believe change begins when life becomes easier, when support appears, when doors open, and when others finally understand them. But the truth is far simpler and far heavier. Most real change begins when the noise disappears, when the audience leaves, when explanations stop, when you are left alone with your intentions, your discipline, and Allah. This is why some of the most important phases of your life will feel quiet, unnoticed, and even misunderstood. Not because you are failing, but because Allah is rebuilding you away from distraction, away from ego, away from performance. When Allah wants to strengthen you, He does not always elevate you publicly. Sometimes He withdraws you privately. He removes the need to speak so that you can learn to act. He removes the crowd so that sincerity can survive. He allows silence to surround you so that your foundation can be rebuilt without interference. If you are in a season where you feel unseen, unheard, or unrecognized, do not rush to explain yourself. Do not rush to announce your intentions. This may be the very moment Allah is shaping you into someone stronger, steadier, and more sincere than you have ever been before. Rebuild yourself in silence. Let them wonder. Silence protects sincerity because sincerity is fragile. It is one of the easiest things to corrupt without realizing it. Many people begin with good intentions, pure intentions, intentions that are genuinely for the sake of Allah, but then they speak too soon. They announce their plans before those plans have roots. They tell people what they are about to do, who they are about to become, what they are trying to change. And without realizing it, the intention shifts. The moment you announce something, you invite voices into a space that was meant to be private. Some voices are encouraging, but even encouragement can be dangerous when it feeds the ego. Other voices are doubtful, jealous, dismissive, or mocking. Suddenly, what began as a quiet intention between you and Allah becomes a public performance. You are no longer focused on obedience. You are focused on outcomes, reactions, and expectations. And this is where sincerity begins to weaken. Allah does not need announcements. Allah does not need updates. Allah does not need proof. He sees what is hidden before it becomes visible. He knows the intention before the action takes shape. When you keep your efforts quiet, you protect them from contamination. You allow your heart to remain clean, focused, and honest. There is a reason why so many acts of worship are encouraged to be private. There is a reason why hidden charity carries such immense reward. There is a reason why private repentance is so powerful. It is because when no one is watching, the only reason left is Allah. There is no applause. There is no validation. There is no image to maintain. There is only truth. Quiet deeds have a different weight. Hidden struggles carry a different sincerity. Private tears are known only to Allah, and that knowledge alone makes them heavier on the scale. When a person cries in isolation, when they raise their hands in the darkness, when they resist temptation without anyone knowing, they are proving something profound. They are proving that their relationship with Allah is not transactional, it is real. Some of the most powerful transformations you will ever experience will happen when no one notices. Not when people are praising you, not when people are impressed by you, but when you stop talking and start correcting, when you stop explaining and start changing, when you stop announcing and start acting. Silence shields the heart. It gives your intention room to breathe. It allows you to work without pressure, without comparison, without fear of failure being witnessed by others. Many people give up not because they are incapable, but because they spoke too soon. They involved too many people. They created expectations they were not yet strong enough to carry. When you keep your journey quiet, you move at Allah's pace, not at the pace of public opinion. You are not rushing to prove progress. You are not tempted to exaggerate success. You are not crushed by temporary setbacks. You simply continue. Understand this clearly. Not every goal needs an audience. Not every improvement needs to be visible. Not every struggle needs to be explained. Some things lose their blessing the moment they are exposed too early. Silence does not mean secrecy for the sake of deception. It means restraint for the sake of sincerity. It means knowing that your heart cannot handle too many eyes watching it while it is still weak. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness before it grows, your transformation often requires privacy before it can stand upright. There are people who talk about change more than they practice it, and there are people who practice change so quietly that others are shocked when the results finally appear. One is noisy and unstable. The other is silent and rooted. When you announce every intention, You begin to live for reactions. You start measuring yourself by how people respond, rather than by how Allah sees you. That is a dangerous exchange. The approval of people is unstable. It rises and falls without logic or loyalty. But the pleasure of Allah is steady, consistent, and eternal. Protect your sincerity the way you protect something precious. Do not expose it to every conversation. Do not explain it to every person. Do not invite opinions from those who are not invested in your akhirah. Work quietly. Improve quietly. Repent quietly. Build discipline quietly. Let your relationship with Allah strengthen away from noise. And when the time comes, when the change is real and rooted, it will not need introduction. It will speak for itself. That is the power of silence. Many people misunderstand silence because they misunderstand what is happening behind it. When Allah removes people from your life, your first reaction is often fear. You think something is wrong. You assume you have failed. You wonder why the support disappeared, why the calls stopped, why the circle grew smaller. But very often this is not rejection. This is preparation. Allah does some of His greatest work when people are absent. When others are around, we lean on them without realizing it. We seek reassurance from their words, strength from their presence, and comfort from their approval. None of these things are inherently wrong, but they can become obstacles if the heart begins to depend on creation more than the Creator. There are moments when Allah wants your attention completely, not divided, not distracted, fully present, and so He removes the noise. When you are alone, your sincerity is tested. When no one is watching, your discipline is revealed. When no one is encouraging you, your reliance becomes clear. Are you moving forward because people are cheering you on, or because you trust Allah even when the path is quiet? This is why solitude is uncomfortable for many people. Silence exposes the heart. There is no audience to impress. There is no distraction to hide behind. You are left with your thoughts, your habits, your weaknesses, and your relationship with Allah. And that can be frightening, but it is also transformative. Allah does not remove people to harm you. He removes them to teach you something you could not learn while they were present. He wants you to understand that your strength does not come from numbers, your peace does not come from attention, and your value does not come from validation. When people are absent, excuses disappear. You cannot blame influence. You cannot hide behind circumstances. You either show up for yourself and for Allah, or you don't. And in that honesty, real growth begins. There are prayers that are only made when no one else is around. There are tears that only fall when the room is empty. There are realizations that only come in silence. These moments shape you in ways public experiences never can. Many of the strongest believers went through phases where they felt alone, not abandoned, but isolated, not unloved, but redirected. These phases taught them to anchor their hearts in Allah alone. And once that anchor was set, no storm could move them. If Allah has reduced your circle, do not rush to refill it. Ask instead what He is teaching you. If He has removed certain voices, ask what distractions He is protecting you from. If He has placed you in solitude, ask what strength He is trying to build within you. People often say, I feel like I have no one. But what they really mean is, I am being forced to rely on Allah more than I ever have before. And that reliance is not a loss. It is an elevation. When people are present, we often perform. When they are absent, we become honest. And honesty is where Allah works most. This is why rebuilding yourself in silence is so powerful. You are not shaped by opinion. You are not influenced by comparison. You are not rushed by expectation. You are guided by purpose. Allah does not need a crowd to change your life. He needs your heart. And sometimes the only way to reach it is through quiet. So if you are in a season where fewer people understand you, fewer people check on you, fewer people know what you are carrying, do not assume the worst. This may be the very space where Allah is strengthening you without interference. Stay present in that silence. Speak to Allah in it. Listen in it. Grow in it. Because when the rebuilding is complete, when the foundation is strong, Allah will reintroduce the world to you. But this time, you will not depend on it. That is why Allah works most when people are absent. Growth is uncomfortable, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling an illusion. Real change is not motivational. It is not cinematic. It does not feel good while it is happening. It feels heavy, slow, and at times deeply lonely. And that is exactly why it usually happens in private. When Allah begins to grow you, He does not start by changing your circumstances. He starts by confronting your habits. He brings you face to face with the parts of yourself you have been avoiding, the excuses you relied on, the weaknesses you justified, the patterns you normalized. And this confrontation is not something most people are willing to witness, which is why it often happens in silence. Growth requires honesty, and honesty is uncomfortable. It means admitting that some of your struggles are not caused by others. Some of your pain is not situational. Some of your delays are not because of bad luck. They are because of discipline, priorities, and choices. And that realization is not something you announce to the world. It is something you sit with, quietly, and work through. When you are rebuilding yourself, you will feel resistance from within before you feel progress. Your nafs does not like structure. It does not like consistency. It does not like restraint. So when you begin to change, there will be internal tension. You will feel tired even when you have done little. You will feel discouraged even when you are moving forward. You will question yourself even when you are doing the right thing. This is normal, and this is why silence is necessary. If you involve too many people in this phase, they will misinterpret your struggle. They will either minimize it or dramatize it. Some will say you are doing too much, others will say you are not doing enough. Neither helps. Growth requires focus, not commentary. There are habits that can only be broken when no one is watching. There are disciplines that can only be built when no one is praising you for them. There are prayers that feel heaviest when they are offered without witnesses. And these private moments shape you far more than public achievements ever will. Understand this clearly. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often a sign that something is changing. When a muscle grows, it tears first. When a seed grows, it breaks open underground. When faith grows, comfort is disturbed. Allah stretches you beyond what is familiar so that you can reach what is better. But this stretching does not look impressive. It looks like quiet persistence. It looks like resisting old habits again and again without applause. It looks like waking up when no one knows you did. It looks like choosing restraint when indulgence would be easier. It looks like continuing even when motivation disappears. That is not something people celebrate. That is something Allah records. Many people abandon growth because they mistake discomfort for failure. They think that if change were meant for them, it would feel easier. But ease usually comes after consistency, not before it. The early stages are supposed to feel heavy. That weight is building strength. This is why growth is often private, not because it is shameful, but because it is fragile. Just like a wound needs covering to heal, a developing discipline needs protection. Exposure too early can reopen what is still healing. There are corrections you must make that only Allah needs to know about. There are habits you must rebuild quietly because announcing them creates pressure you are not yet ready to carry. There are phases where you must choose to disappear from noise so you can hear yourself think and hear Allah guide you. And make no mistake, silence does not mean inactivity. It means focused effort. It means removing distractions so the work can actually be done. It means choosing depth over display. People admire outcomes, but Allah rewards effort. People applaud success, but Allah records struggle. People notice the finish line, but Allah sees every step taken when no one was watching. If your growth feels lonely, understand that loneliness is often the space where clarity forms. When distractions fall away, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You recognize what needs to stay and what must go. You stop performing and start transforming. Do not rush this process. Do not compare your private struggle to someone else's public success. You are not behind. You are being shaped. Stay consistent even when it is uncomfortable. Stay patient even when progress feels slow. Stay sincere even when no one notices. Because when growth is real, it does not need explanation. It shows itself naturally, quietly, and unmistakably. That is why growth is uncomfortable, and that is why it is usually private. Not everyone deserves access to your process, and this is a truth many people learn too late. They assume that because someone is close, curious, or vocal, that person has earned the right to know everything. But Islam teaches wisdom, not emotional exposure without restraint. There is a difference between trust and oversharing, and confusing the two often leads to harm. Your process is fragile. While you are rebuilding yourself, you are not finished. You are not stable yet. You are correcting habits, restructuring priorities, and disciplining your soul. This is not the phase for spectators. This is the phase for protection. When you give everyone access to your journey, you invite interference. Some people interfere with words, others interfere with expectations, some interfere with doubt, others interfere with pressure. Even well-meaning people can become obstacles if they are allowed into spaces they do not understand. There are people who love the idea of your success, but are uncomfortable with your discipline. There are people who want you to improve as long as it does not disturb their expectations of you. There are people who will encourage you loudly at the beginning but disappear when consistency is required. And there are people who will discourage you simply because your growth reminds them of what they are avoiding. This is why wisdom demands selectivity. The Prophet taught us balance. He taught us when to speak and when to remain silent. He taught us that not every truth must be shared, and not every experience must be narrated. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is not dishonesty, it is protection. Your process does not need commentary, it needs consistency. When people watch you rebuild, they often misunderstand what they are seeing. They see moments, not patterns. They see effort, not intention. They see struggle and assume weakness, or they see improvement and assume arrogance. Either way, their interpretations rarely align with reality, and if you internalize those interpretations, your focus begins to fracture. Rebuilding yourself requires a level of concentration that cannot survive constant explanation. When you are always clarifying your choices, you start negotiating them. When you are always defending your discipline, you begin doubting it. When you are always justifying your boundaries, you slowly dismantle them. This is why silence becomes a form of self-respect. Not every person asking questions is seeking understanding. Some are seeking comparison, some are seeking reassurance, some are seeking control, and some are simply curious without care for the consequences. Wisdom is knowing the difference and responding accordingly. There is also a spiritual danger in oversharing progress. When people praise you too early, your ego grows faster than your discipline. When people admire the effort more than the outcome, you may begin to perform consistency rather than live it. And once the applause fades, the motivation collapses. Allah protects you from this by teaching you restraint. Your process belongs first to Allah. It is shaped by your intentions, your prayers, your repentance, and your effort. Allowing too many people into it dilutes that relationship. It shifts your focus from obedience to observation. There are people who want to see results without respecting the cost. They want to witness the change but not the sacrifice. They want to benefit from your growth but not support your discipline. Giving them access too early only drains you. So protect your journey. This does not mean isolating yourself from all guidance. It means choosing it carefully. Seek advice from those who are grounded, sincere, and more concerned with your akhirah than your image. Avoid inviting opinions from those who speak loudly but live loosely. Not every voice deserves influence. Some stages of your life require privacy because they are still under construction. You do not invite people into a building site and expect peace. There is noise, dust, disruption, and unfinished work. Your inner rebuilding is no different. Allow yourself the dignity of privacy while you grow. There will come a time when the change is evident, when the discipline is stable, when the habits are no longer fragile, when the consistency no longer requires effort. That is when exposure becomes safe. That is when your example benefits others without harming you. Until then, restraint is wisdom. You do not owe everyone an explanation for your silence. You do not owe everyone updates on your growth. You do not owe everyone access to your intentions. Allah knows your effort, that is enough. Rebuild quietly, correct privately, strengthen yourself away from noise, because not everyone deserves access to your process, and protecting it may be the very reason it succeeds. Allah rewards consistency, not performance. This truth alone, if understood properly, would change how many people live, worship, and judge themselves. Most people exhaust themselves trying to look strong instead of becoming strong. They perform goodness instead of committing to it. And when the performance stops receiving attention, the action stops altogether. Performance is loud. Consistency is quiet. Performance seeks moments. Consistency builds lives. Performance needs energy, emotion, and visibility. Consistency needs discipline, patience, and sincerity. And Allah, in His wisdom, has made it clear through revelation and through life itself that what lasts is not what is impressive, but what is repeated. Many people misunderstand what Allah loves. They think He is impressed by dramatic change, sudden transformation, or visible sacrifice. They believe that the louder the action, the greater the reward. But Allah is not impressed by volume. He is pleased by continuity. A small action done regularly with sincerity outweighs a large action done occasionally for attention. A quiet habit maintained for years outweighs a powerful moment that fades within weeks. Allah's scale does not tilt toward spectacle, it tilts toward perseverance. This is why rebuilding yourself in silence aligns so closely with divine wisdom. Silence removes performance. It strips away the audience. It forces you to confront one simple question: would you still do this if no one ever knew? When no one is watching, consistency becomes honest. You are no longer motivated by praise or fear of judgment. You are motivated by obedience. And obedience does not need witnesses. Many people begin strong and fade quickly. They pray intensely for a short time, then disappear. They discipline themselves aggressively, then burn out. They announce change loudly, then retreat quietly. This pattern is not due to lack of faith. It is due to misunderstanding how growth works. Allah does not ask you to overwhelm yourself. He asks you to remain faithful to what you can sustain. Consistency is not glamorous. It is repetitive. It is boring. It tests patience more than passion. You wake up and do the same right thing again. You resist the same temptation again. You correct the same habit again. There is no applause for this, no recognition, no visible milestone. But this is exactly why it matters. Allah records effort differently than people do. People celebrate peaks. Allah records persistence. People admire intensity. Allah values reliability. People remember moments. Allah measures patterns. Think about how many good intentions die because people aim for perfection instead of continuity. They set unrealistic standards, miss once, and then abandon everything. They tell themselves that if they cannot do it fully, they should not do it at all. This thinking is destructive and completely opposite to divine wisdom. Allah does not expect perfection. He expects sincerity paired with effort. A person who prays 2 consistent rak'ahs every day for years is stronger in the sight of Allah than a person who prays long nights once a month and abandons prayer the rest of the time. A person who controls their tongue daily, even imperfectly, is more disciplined than someone who speaks beautifully in public but collapses in private. Consistency builds spiritual muscle. It trains the soul to obey even when motivation is absent. And that is where real faith is proven. Performance collapses when emotion fades. Consistency continues even when feeling disappears. This is why silence is your ally. When you are not performing for others, you are not pressured to exaggerate. You are not tempted to overcommit. You are not forced to maintain an image. You are free to move at a pace you can sustain. Allah loves what is stable. Rebuilding yourself quietly allows you to choose habits that you can carry for life, not just for a season. It allows you to focus on what matters most, not what looks impressive. It teaches you to prioritize depth over display. Understand this carefully. People will not notice consistency. They notice change. They notice extremes. They notice visibility. If your motivation depends on being noticed, consistency will feel unrewarding. But if your motivation is Allah, consistency will feel peaceful. There is also a protection in consistency. It guards you from arrogance. When you do something extraordinary once, your ego grows quickly. When you do something ordinary faithfully, your humility deepens. And humility is one of the greatest protections a believer can have. Allah does not elevate the loudest, He elevates the steadiest. Many people underestimate the power of small, repeated obedience. They think their efforts are insignificant because they do not feel dramatic. They think their progress is slow because it is not visible. But Allah is building something within them that cannot be rushed. Faith that is rushed often collapses. Faith that is nurtured patiently endures. There are acts of worship that will never trend. There are personal struggles that no one will applaud. There are private victories that no one will ever know about, but Allah knows. And that knowledge alone makes them heavy. Do not measure your progress by how inspired you feel. Measure it by how faithful you remain when inspiration leaves. Do not judge yourself by occasional failure. Judge yourself by whether you return. Consistency does not mean never falling. It means always getting back up. Allah loves the servant who sins, repents, and continues striving more than the servant who performs righteousness once and abandons it out of pride or exhaustion. Continuity in repentance is itself an act of worship. This is why rebuilding yourself in silence is so powerful. You are no longer chasing motivation. You are building discipline. You are no longer seeking admiration. You are seeking alignment with Allah. And alignment takes time. There will be days when your effort feels meaningless. Days when your prayer feels heavy. Days when your discipline feels mechanical. Do not stop. These days are not wasted. They are training you to obey without emotional reward. That kind of obedience is rare, and it is beloved. Allah does not reward what is loudest. He rewards what is most faithful. So choose consistency over performance. Choose sustainability over intensity. Choose sincerity over spectacle. Build habits you can carry quietly for years, not actions you can display briefly for attention. And trust this, what is built with consistency may grow slowly, but it grows deeply, and what grows deeply cannot be shaken. That is why Allah rewards consistency, not performance. My brothers and my sisters, silence is not emptiness. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often the space where Allah prepares His servants for what is next. If you have learned anything from this, let it be this. You do not need to be loud to be powerful, and you do not need to be visible to be valuable. What Allah builds in private cannot be shaken by public opinion. Continue quietly, improve steadily, correct yourself honestly, be patient when no one notices, and remain sincere when no one applauds. Allah sees every step, every struggle, and every moment of restraint. And when the time comes, when the change is real, and the foundation is strong, you will not need to explain what happened. The discipline will show, the character will speak, the strength will be evident. Until then, trust the silence, trust the process, trust Allah, and let them wonder.